Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And now we're going through the Srimad-Bhagavatam, all 340 or 335 chapters. Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters, 700 verses. Bhagavatam is 330 something, 370, 35, 18,000 verses. So I heard Gopi Pranadana Prabhu today said that just because the Bhagavad Gita doesn't have all of the intimate explanations and details that the Bhagavatam does, that we should stop reading the Bhagavad Gita. We should continue to read the Bhagavad Gita. Because it's interesting, because when you continue to read the Gita, you'll see things in the Gita that are unpacked. You'll see how it's unpacked, and it increases your faith. Yeah. And it gives you more thorough understanding. The foundation's there. Okay, welcome everyone out there in cyberspace, whoever happens to be there. Let's read the prayer, Sanatana Goswami. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, the glories of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprida. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwan Doditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostude. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Mat Sangin, Mad Guru Mad Mahadana, Mad Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu, sadhu tadayin, atini chuchatakara, hanamunchikadachin mam, premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, it's only the first line, it's the same. Only the first line is the same. Okay, here we are. The end of the chapter of the Hamsa-guhya Prayers. Lord Vishnu is speaking to Daksha. He appeared in Daksha's sacrifice, or appeared after he did austerities and after he made these prayers. Chapter 4, Canto 6, verse 47. Before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, I alone existed, with my specific spiritual potencies. Consciousness was then unmanifested, just as one's consciousness is unmanifested during the time of sleep. Purport. The word aham indicates a person. As explained in the Vedas, nityo, nityanam, chaitanas, chaitananam. Kata Upanishad 2.2.13. The Lord is the supreme eternal among innumerable eternals, and the supreme living being among the innumerable living beings. The Lord is a person who also has impersonal features. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.11, Vedanti tat tatva vidas tatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Consideration of the Paramatma and impersonal Brahman arose after the creation. Before the creation, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed, as firmly declared in Bhagavad Gita 18:55. The Lord can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. The ultimate cause, the supreme cause of creation, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. He cannot be understood by speculative philosophical research or by meditation. Since all such processes came into existence after the material creation, the impersonal and localized conceptions of the Supreme Lord are more or less materially contaminated. The real spiritual process, therefore, is Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Only by devotional service can I be understood. Before the creation, the Lord existed as a person, as indicated here by the word aham. When Prajapati Daksha saw him as a person who was beautifully dressed and ornamented, he actually experienced the meaning of this word aham through devotional service. Each person is eternal because the Lord says that he existed as a person before the creation, agre, and will also exist after the annihilation. The Lord is a person eternally. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore quotes these verses from Srimad-Bhagavatam 10.9, 13 through 14. Na chantar, na bahir yasya, na purvam, na pichaparam, purva param bahischantar, jagato yo jagachchayaha, tam mat majamavyaktam, marchalingam madoksajam, gopi ko lu kale damna, bandaban babadanda prakritam yata. The personality of Godhead appeared in Vrindavan as the son of Mother Yashoda, who bound the Lord with rope, just as an ordinary mother binds a material child. There are actually no divisions of external and internal for the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satchidananda Vigraha. But when he appears in his own form, the unintelligent think him an ordinary person. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanamashritam. Although he comes in his own body, which never changes. Mudhas, the unintelligent, think that the impersonal Brahman has assumed a material body to come in the form of a person. Ordinary living beings assume material bodies, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Consciousness, it is stated herein that samjnana matram, the original consciousness, Krishna consciousness, was unmanifested before the creation, although the consciousness, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of everything. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 2:12, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be." Thus the Lord's person is the absolute truth in the past, present, and future. In this regard, Madhvacharya quotes two verses from the Matsya Purana. Nana varno harish tveko bahushirsha bahu bujo rupat asila ye diranyatu sukshma rupam shriyambina asupta supta ivacha militaksho babedarihi anyatarandharad vishnau shrishcha lineva katyate shukshmat vena haraustana linam anyad apishyate. After the annihilation of everything, the Supreme Lord, because of his Satchidananda Vigraha, remains in his original form. But since the other living entities have material bodies, the matter, merges into matter, and the subtle form of the spirit soul remains within the body of the Lord. The Lord does not sleep, but the ordinary living entities remain asleep until the next creation. An unintelligent person thinks that the opulence of the Supreme Lord is non-existent after the annihilation, but that is not a fact. The opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as it is in the spiritual world. Only in the material world is everything dissolved. Brahma-lina, merging into the Supreme Brahman, is not actual lina or annihilation. For the subtle form remaining in the Brahman effulgence will return to the spiritual world after the material creation and again assuming material form. This is described as bhutva praliyate, Bhagavad Gita 8:19. So there's an example of what I was talking about, where the verse in the Bhagavatam and the Gita is expanded in the Bhagavatam. And when you get familiar with the Gita and read both, don't just give up the Gita to read the Bhagavatam, it makes everything clearer and clearer and clearer, which is very important. When the material body is annihilated, the spirit soul remains in a subtle form, which later assumes another material body. This is true for the conditioned souls, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains eternally in his original consciousness and spiritual body. Text 48. I am the reservoir of unlimited potency, and therefore I am known as unlimited or all-pervading. From my material energy, the cosmic manifestation appeared within me, and in this universal manifestation appeared the chief being, Lord Brahma, who is your source and is not born of a material mother. Purport. This is a description of the history of the universal creation. The first cause is the Lord himself, the Supreme Person. From him, Brahma is created, and Brahma takes charge of the affairs of the universe. The universal affairs of the material creation depend upon the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore the cause of the material creation. The entire cosmic manifestation is described herein as guna vigraha, the form of the Lord's qualities. From the cosmic universal form, the first creation is Lord Brahma, who is the cause of all living entities. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya describes the unlimited attributes of the Lord. Pratyakasho gunanam tu, nisid matvam udiryate, dadanantyam tu gunatas, te chananta hisankyaya, ato nantaguno vishnur, gunato nanta evacha. Parasya Shaktir, Vividai Vishruyate. The Lord has innumerable potencies, all of which all of which are unlimited. Therefore the Lord himself and all his qualities, forms, pastimes, and paraphernalia are also unlimited. Because Lord Vishnu has unlimited attributes, he is known as Ananta. 49 and 50. Savayada Mahadevo. When the chief Lord of the universe, Lord Brahma, Swayambhu, having been inspired by my energy, was attempting to create, he thought himself incapable. Therefore I gave him advice, and in accordance with my instructions, he underwent extremely difficult austerities. Because of these austerities, the great Lord Brahma was able to create 9 personalities, including you, to help him in the functions of creation. Purport. Nothing is possible without tapasya. Holy Krishna, or tapasya personified, is here. Nothing is possible without tapasya. Lord Brahma, however, was empowered to create this universe, entire universe, because of his austerities. The more we engage in austerities, the more we become powerful by the grace of the Lord. Prabhupada made an interesting point of this. I have to make a little comment. I usually don't, but I'm going to make one here. What's austere for one person is not for another person. So sometimes you have to do austerity, you have to step out of something that other people think may be very austere and do something that to them doesn't seem as austere. Well, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Make yourself comfortable. If you please sit in a chair. There's one right here for you, or there's one there for you. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Nothing is possible without tapasya. Lord Brahma, however, was empowered to create this entire universe because of his austerities. The more we engage in austerities, the more we become powerful by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, Rishabdev advised his sons, Tapodivyam, Putraka, Yena Satvam, Shudyad. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. Bhagavatam 5.5.1. In our material existence, we are impure, and therefore we cannot do anything wonderful. But if we purify our existence by tapasya, we can do wonderful things by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, tapasya is very important, as stressed in this verse. Text 51. My dear son, Daksha, Prajapati, Pajajanya has a daughter named Asikni, whom I offer to you so that you may accept her as your wife. Text 52. Now unite in sexual life as man and woman, and in this way, by sexual intercourse, you will be able to beget hundreds of children in the womb of this girl to increase the population. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7:11, Dharma virudo bhuteshu kamosmi. I am sex that is not contrary to religious principles. Sexual intercourse ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is dharma, a religious principle, but it is not intended for sense enjoyment. Indulgence in sense enjoyment through sexual intercourse is not allowed by the Vedic principles. One may follow the natural tendency for sex life only to beget children. Therefore the Lord told Daksha in this verse, this girl is offered to you only for sex life to beget children, not for any other purpose. She is very fertile, and therefore you will be able to have as many children as you can beget. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that Daksha was given the facility for unlimited sexual intercourse. In Daksha's previous life, he was also known as Daksha, but in the course of performing sacrifices, he offended Lord Shiva, and thus his head was replaced with that of a goat. Then Daksha gave up his life because of his degraded condition. But because he maintained the same unlimited sexual desires, he underwent austerities by which he satisfied the Supreme Lord, who then gave him unlimited potency for sexual intercourse. It should be noticed that although such a facility for sexual intercourse is achieved by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this facility is not offered to advanced devotees who are free from material desires. Anyabhilashita shunyam. In this connection, it may be noted that if the American boys and girls engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement want to advance in Krishna consciousness to achieve the supreme benefit of loving service to the Lord, they should refrain from indulging in this facility for sex life. Therefore, we advise that one should at least refrain from illicit sex. Even if there are opportunities for sex life, one should voluntarily accept the limitation of having sex only for progeny, not for any other purpose. Kardama Muni was also given the facility for sex life, but he had only a slight desire for it. Therefore, after begetting children in the womb of Devahuti, Kardama Muni became completely renounced. The purport is that if one wants to return home, back to Godhead, one should voluntarily refrain from sex life. Sex should be accepted only as much as needed, not unlimitedly. One should not think that Daksha received the favor of the Lord by receiving the facilities for unlimited sex. Later verses will reveal that Daksha again committed an offense, this time at the lotus feet of Narada. Therefore, although sex life is the topmost enjoyment in the material world, and although one may have an opportunity for sexual enjoyment by the grace of God, this entails a risk of committing offenses. Daksha was open to such offenses, and therefore, strictly speaking, he was not actually favored by the Supreme Lord. One should not seek the favor of the Lord for unlimited potency in sex life. Text 53. After you give birth to many hundreds and thousands of children, they will also be captivated by my material illusory energy and will engage like you in sexual intercourse. But because of my mercy to you and them, they will also be able to give me presentations in devotion. Text 54. Shukadeva Goswami continued, after the creator of the entire universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, had spoken in this way in the presence of Prajapati Daksha, he immediately disappeared as if he were an object experienced in a dream. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 4th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled the Hamsa-guhya Prayers offered to the Lord by Prajapati Daksha. Hari Another drama, another act in the drama, the supreme drama. Okay. Chapter 5. Narada Muni cursed by Prajapati Daksha. It's not so easy to learn the lessons in this material world. This chapter relates how all the sons of Daksha were delivered from the clutches of the material energy by following the advice of Narada, who was therefore cursed by Daksha. Influenced by the external energy of Lord Vishnu, Prajapati Daksha begot 10,000 sons in the womb of his wife Panchajani. These sons, who were all of the same character and mentality, were known as the Haryashvas. Ordered by their father to create more and more population, the Haryashvas went west to the place where the river Sindhu, now the Indus, meets the Arabian Sea, and in those days this was the site of a holy lake named Narayana Saras, where there were many saintly persons. The Haryashvas began practicing austerities, penances, and meditation, which are the engagements of the highly exalted, renounced order of life. However, When Srila Narada Muni saw these boys engaged in such commendable austerities simply for material creation, he thought it better to release them from this tendency. Narada Muni described to the boys their ultimate goal of life and advised them not to become ordinary karmis, to beget children. Thus all the sons of Daksha became enlightened and left, never to return. Prajapati Daksha, who was very sad at the loss of his sons, begot 1,000 more sons in the womb of his wife, Panchajani, and ordered them to increase progeny. These sons, who were named the Sabalashvas, also engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu to beget children, but Narada Muni convinced them to become mendicants and not beget children. Foiled twice in his attempts to increase population, Prajapati Daksha became most angry at Narada Muni and cursed him, saying that in the future he would not be able to stay anywhere. Since Narada Muni, being fully qualified, was fixed in tolerance, he accepted Daksha's curse. Text 1. Fit in with his lifestyle. No big deal. Text 1. Shrila Shukadev Goswami continued, impelled by the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, Prajapati Daksha begot 10,000 sons in the womb of Panchajani, Asikni. My dear king, these sons were called the Haryashvas. Text 2. My dear king, all these sons of Prajapati Daksha were alike in being very gentle and obedient to the orders of their father. When their father ordered them to beget children, they all went in the western direction. Text 3. In the west, where the river Sindhu meets the sea, there is a great place of pilgrimage known as Narayana Saras. Many sages and others advanced in spiritual consciousness live there. Text 4 and 5. In that holy place, the Haryashvas began regularly touching the lake's waters and bathing in them. Gradually becoming very much purified, they became inclined toward the activities of Paramahamsas. Nevertheless, because their father had ordered them to increase the population, they performed severe austerities to fulfill his desires. One day, when the great sage Narada saw those boys performing such fine austerities to increase the population, Narada approached them. Text 5 and 6. Oh, wait, it's 5 through 8. 6 through 8. The great sage Narada said, my dear Haryashvas, you have not seen the extremities of the earth. There is a kingdom only where one man lives, and where there is a hole from which, having entered, no one emerges. A woman there, who is extremely unchaste, adorns herself with various attractive dresses, and the man who lives there is her husband. In that kingdom there is a river flowing in both directions, a wonderful home made of 25 materials, a swan that vibrates various sounds, and an automatically revolving object made of sharp razors and thunderbolts. You have not seen all this, and therefore you are inexperienced boys without advanced knowledge. How then will you create progeny? Purport. Narada Muni saw that the boys known as the Haryashvas were already purified because of living in that holy place, and were practically ready for liberation. Why then should they be encouraged to become entangled in family life? Haribol, Parmeshwar, Haribol, Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. Why then should they be encouraged to become entangled in family life, which is so dark that once having entered it, one cannot leave it? Through this analogy, Narada Muni asked them to consider why they should follow their father's order to be entangled in family life. Indirectly, he asked them to find within the cores of their hearts the situation of the Supersoul, Lord Vishnu, for then they would truly be experienced. In other words, one who is too involved in his material environment, does not look within the core of his heart, is increasingly entangled in the illusory energy. Narada Muni's purpose was to get the sons of Prajapati Daksha to divert their attention towards spiritual realization instead of involving themselves in the ordinary but complicated affairs of propagation. The same advice was given by Prahlad Maharaj to his father. Srimad-Bhagavatam 7.5.5 Tat sadhu manye sudavarya dehinam sada samudbigna diyam asadgrahat hitvatmapatam kriyamanda kupam vanam gato yad dadim ashrayeta. In the dark well of family life, one is always full of anxiety because of having accepted a temporary body. If one wants to free himself from this anxiety, one should immediately leave family life and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vrindavan. Narada Muni advised the Haryashvas not to enter household life. Since they were already advanced in spiritual knowledge, why should they be entangled in that way? Text 9. Alas, your father is omniscient, but you do not know his actual order. Without knowing the actual purpose of your father, how will you create progeny? Text 10. Shukadev Goswami said, hearing these enigmatic words of Narada Muni, the Haryashvas considered them with their natural intelligence, without help from others. Text 11. The Haryashvas understood the meaning of Narada's words as follows. The word Bhu, the earth, refers to the field of activities. The material body, which is a result of the living entity's actions, is his field of activities, and it gives him false designations. Since time immemorial, he has received various types of material bodies, which are the roots of bondage to the material world. If one foolishly engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not look toward the cessation of this bondage, what will be the benefit of his actions? Purport. Narada Muni spoke to the Haryashvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, about 10 allegorical subjects: the king, the kingdom, the river, the house, the physical elements, and so forth. After considering these by themselves, the Haryashvas could understand that the living entity encaged in his body seeks happiness but takes no interest in how to become free from his encagement. This is a very important verse, since all the living entities in the material world are very active, having obtained their particular types of bodies. A man works all day and night for sense gratification, and animals like hogs and dogs also work for sense gratification all day and night. Birds, beasts, and all other conditioned living entities engage in various activities without knowledge of the soul encaged within the body. Especially in the human form of body, one's duty is to act in such a way that he can release himself from his engagement. But without the instructions of Narada or his representative in the disciplic succession, people blindly engage in bodily activities to enjoy maya sukha, flickering, temporary happiness. They do not know how to become free from their material engagement. Rishabhadev therefore said that such activity is not at all good, since it encages the soul again and again in a body subjected to the threefold miseries of the material condition. The Haryashvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, could immediately understand the purport of Narada's instructions. Our Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for such enlightenment. We are trying to enlighten humanity so that people may come to the understanding that they should work hard in tapasya for self-realization and freedom from the continuous bondage of birth, death, old age, and disease in one body after another. Maya, however, is very strong. She is expert in putting impediments in the way of this understanding. Therefore, sometimes one comes to the Krishna conscious movement, but again falls into the clutches of Maya, not understanding the importance of this movement. Text 12. Narada Muni had said that there is a kingdom where there is only one male. The Haryashvas realized the purport of this statement. The only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who observes everything, everywhere. He is full of 6 opulences and fully independent of everyone else. He is never subject to the 3 modes of material nature, for he is always transcendental to this material creation. If the members of human society do not understand him, the Supreme, through their advancement in knowledge and activities, but simply work. If the members of human society do not understand him, the Supreme, through their advancement in knowledge and activities, but simply work very hard, like cats and dogs, all day and night, for temporary happiness, what will be the benefit of their activities? Purport. Narada Muni had mentioned a kingdom where there is only one king with no competitor. The complete spiritual world, and specifically the cosmic manifestation, has only one proprietor or enjoyer, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond this material manifestation. The Lord has therefore been described as Turiya, existing on the 4th platform. He has also been described as Abhava. The word Bhava, which means takes birth, comes from the word Bhu, to be. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:19, Bhutva, Bhutva, Praliyate. The living entities in the material world must be repeatedly born and destroyed. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is neither Bhutva nor Praliyate. He is eternal. In other words, he is not obliged to take birth like human beings or animals, which repeatedly take birth and die because of ignorance of the soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not subjected to such changes of body, and one who thinks otherwise is called a fool. Avajanam dimam mudha manushim tanamashritam. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Narada Muni advises that human beings not waste their time simply jumping like cats and monkeys without real benefit. The duty of the human being is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 13. Narada Muni had described that there is a bila, or hole, from which, having entered, one does not return. The Haryashvas understood the meaning of this allegory. Hardly once has a person who entered the lower planetary system, called Patala, been seen to return. Similarly, if one enters the Vaikuntha-dham, Pratyagdham, he does not return to this material world. If there is such a place from which, having gone, one does not return to the miserable condition, material condition of life, what is the use of jumping like monkeys in the temporary material world and not seeing or understanding that place? What will be the profit? Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:6, Yad gatva na nivartante taddama paramam mama. There is a region from which, having gone, one does not return to the material world. This region has been repeatedly described. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatpataha chaktva punar janma naitimam eti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. If one can properly understand Krishna, who has already been described as the Supreme King, one does not return here after giving up his material body. This fact has been described in this verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Puman naivahiti gadgatva. He does not return to this material world, but returns home back to Godhead to live an eternally blissful life of knowledge. Why do people not care about this? What will be the benefit of taking birth again in this material world? Sometimes as a human being, sometimes a demigod, and sometimes a cat or dog. What is the benefit of wasting time in this way? Krishna has very definitely asserted in Bhagavad Gita 8:15, Mam upetya punarjanma dukalayam ashasvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsitim paramamgataha. After attaining me, the great souls who were yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. One's real concern should be to free himself from the repetition of birth and death and attain the topmost perfection of life by living with the Supreme King in the spiritual world. In these verses, the sons of Daksha repeatedly say, Kim asat karmabir bhavet. What is the use of impermanent fruitive activities? Text 14. Narada Muni has described a woman who was a professional prostitute. The Haryashvas understood the identity of this woman. Mixed with the motive passion, the unsteady intelligence of every living entity is like a prostitute who changes dresses just to attract one's attention. If one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities, not understanding how this is taking place, what does he actually attain? Purport. A woman who has no husband and declares herself independent, which means that she becomes a prostitute. A prostitute generally dresses herself in various fashions intended to attract the man's attention to the lower part of her body. Today it has become a much advertised fashion for a woman to go almost naked, covering the lower part of her body only slightly, in order to draw the attention of a man to her private parts for sexual enjoyment. The intelligence engaged to attract a man to the lower part of the body is the intelligence of a professional prostitute. Similarly, the intelligence of a living entity who does not turn his attention toward Krishna or the Krishna consciousness movement simply changes dresses like a prostitute. What is the benefit of such foolish intelligence? One should be intelligently conscious in such a way that he need no longer change from one body to another. Karmis change their professions at any moment, but a Krishna conscious person does not change his profession, for his only profession is to attract the attention of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and living a very simple life without following daily changes of fashion. In our Krishna consciousness movement, fashionable persons are taught to adopt one fashion, the dress of a Vaishnava with a shaved head and tilak. They are taught to be always clean in mind, dress, and eating in order to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. What is the use of changing one's dress, sometimes wearing long hair and a long beard, and sometimes dressing otherwise? This is not good. One should not waste his time in such frivolous activities. One should always be fixed in Krishna consciousness and take the cure of devotional service with firm determination. Text 15. Narada Muni had also spoken of a man who was the husband of the prostitute. The Haryashvas understood this as follows. If one becomes the husband of a prostitute, he loses all independence. Similarly, if a living entity has polluted intelligence, he prolongs his materialistic life. Frustrated by material nature, he must follow the movements of the intelligence, which brings various conditions of happiness and distress. If one performs fruitive activities under such conditions, what will be the benefit? Purport. Polluted intelligence has been compared to a prostitute. One who has not purified his intelligence is said to be controlled by that prostitute. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:41, Vyabhasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana. Those who are actually serious are conducted by one kind of intelligence, namely, intelligence in Krishna consciousness. Bahu shaka yanantascha buddhayo vyabhasayinam. One who is not fixed in proper intelligence discovers many modes of life. Thus involved in material activities, he is exposed to the different modes of material nature and subjected to varieties of so-called happiness and distress. If a man becomes the husband of a prostitute, he cannot be happy. And similarly, one who follows the dictations of material intelligence and material consciousness will never be happy. One must judiciously understand the activities of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. Although one follows the dictations of material nature, he happily thinks himself the master or husband of material nature. Scientists, for example, try to be the masters of material nature, life after life, not caring to understand the Supreme Person, under whose direction everything within this material world is moving. Trying to be the masters of material nature, they are imitation gods who declare to the public that scientific advancement will one day be able to avoid the so-called control of God. In fact, however, the living being, unable to control the rulings of God, is forced to associate with the prostitute of polluted intelligence and accept various material bodies. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13:22, Purushak prakatisto hi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangasyo sarasat jonijan masu. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. If one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not solve this real problem, what profit will he gain? Hare Krishna. So we'll end our reading for this afternoon and welcome everyone to participate in our open mic Sangha. Anything that you've heard in the reading that's stuck in your mind and you want to reflect upon, or Krishna Bhagavan. Now you have to take care, right? You're the techie for the day.
Hare Krishna.
You have to move this around so that everyone can see him. Okay.
I like this analogy that the polluted intelligence is compared to a prostitute. I thought that was a very graphic analogy. So, and I always appreciate this verse, 241, Vavasyatmaka Buddhireke Kurnan. Those who are actually serious are conducted by one kind of intelligence, namely intelligence in Krishna consciousness. That's
Bahushakayanantascha. If we're not fixed, then our intelligence will go many places, and we lose the ability to think of Krishna.
so. Is it a matter of of hearing, and that fixes the intelligence?
I just heard Gopi Puranadana Prabhu elaborate on a text in which Srila Prabhupada in his purports described that even hearing the right thing isn't enough. One must get a drop, even a drop of the mercy of pure devotee, mercy of Krishna through the pure devotee. Even if you read and read and read and read, it requires a kind of mercy to actually understand it properly. In other words, assimilating knowledge in Krishna consciousness is not a question of accumulating information. It's something. It's for another purpose. It's to bring us to the point of humility, and to the point of submissive. With that humility, submissive oral reception. So it's not a mechanical process. It's not a pragmatic, academic type of hearing that causes the soul to wake up by the hearing and realize and get realizations from the reading that, yeah, this is what I should be doing. Yes, that's true. I remember saying this. Yeah, that makes sense. In other words, if you look at the world through this knowledge, having brought it into yourself and assimilated it, you can't look at the world through the knowledge, actually, unless you've assimilated it yourself. Atmavat manyate jagat. We tend to see the world through the prism of our own consciousness, our own desires, our own state of being. A person who's very lusty, everywhere he looks, he'll see a beautiful woman. A person who's completely into something else, the same women can be there, but he doesn't pay attention to them. So it depends on our consciousness. The natural thing for a conditioned soul who is being battered, as we've been hearing very graphically expressed by Prabhupada in the purports and by Narada Muni in his allegory, is to just get, discouraged by doing this and then look for something else and go for that, get discouraged in doing that and then go for something else, like that. Polluted intelligence. That's why it's described to be like a prostitute, because a prostitute goes from one man to another. It's the same thing. Prabhupada uses the example of the lightning strike. Like we had a lot of lightning recently in this parts of the country. They even made a special little, documentary about it. They had one place where lightning hit the exact same place like 10 or 12 times. Pretty powerful. A lightning rod is pretty powerful. So the conditioned soul gets the same experience over and over and over again, and then tries to change the result by doing the same thing over and over again, only in different places with different things and different toys. So this is, Einstein said that this is a symptom of insanity. If you want to get the same, if you expect to get a different result from doing the same thing over and over again. So, yeah, it's more than just reading a book. On the other hand, if one is in the right consciousness, then reading the book is devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, and as a matter of fact, it's the first item of devotional service. So another way of looking at it is, without that hearing, you can't go properly to the other forms of devotional service. They will become mundane. things are mundane or not mundane according to how we grasp them and how we utilize them and how we understand them and what we do about them. Then you get the benefit from reading the book. Full benefit. You know, in Kali Yuga, it's a special situation because before, in previous ages, we didn't even have books. There weren't books in previous ages. And the reason was because it was considered to be an offense to study something from a book or from a writer. It's you're supposed to remember, you know, real education is to memorize and then, you know, apply it. But in Kali Yuga, we haven't got the brains to memorize anymore. Maybe a little bit. We can remember where to go to get the groceries or how to put the key in the car and drive from one place to another. But we're seeing such classic examples of these things in the world today, where these leaders who have the foggiest idea what they're doing are grappling with this problem, which is just getting worse and worse, and it's the same problem, but they're doing the same things again and again, or nothing in some cases, to solve the problem. And the nature, material nature, is just saying, "Oh, look, let's have a fun time with that." It's like putting a 6-year-old on a professional football field. Letting them learn the hard way, where some people, throw the babies deep into the pool. Of course, they're there to make sure they don't drown, but it's kind of a shock way of, teaching. Yeah, so the books are important. It's not that we're against knowledge, but we're against knowledge for knowledge's sake. We're for increasing our knowledge about Krishna. And since everything is a transformation of Krishna's energy, indirectly, even when we cultivate knowledge, we're headed in that direction. Those 4 verses in the 12th chapter, where Krishna describes very nicely the progressive development of consciousness, and the end was, always think of me without deviation, 24/7. That's the goal in love. Then the next, if you can't do that, then follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga, the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga. And then if you can't do that, then work for me. Work for me means to consciously do some work, and then help the devotees and give some donations or help, come and do something that, whatever ability you have, or skills you have, use them to help spread the movement. And if you can't do that for some social, political reason, then you can work independently and give in charity. Give the fruits of your work in charity so that you get the sense of being detached. And then, he says in the last verse, if you can't do that, then cultivate knowledge. But then he says, better than knowledge is meditation. What does meditation mean in that sense? Contemplating the knowledge. Contemplating, thinking about it, applying it, meditation. Not to just sit there. Meditation means to use the knowledge practically. And then he says, better than that is to renounce the fruits. And that connects right to the next verse. See, so it goes, cultivation of knowledge, contemplation, renounce the fruits, which goes right to the next verse, then work for Krishna, then perform the activities of Bhakti Yoga, regulated devotional service, sadhana bhakti, and then spontaneous love. So it's all there in the Gita, but it's not. You can't understand it just by reading it. You have to understand it having studied it under the guidance of persons who are connected to the source of the knowledge. And that's what happened to the Aryashvas. They met Narada Muni. they were already doing these really wonderful austerities, and they were become purified and getting attached to Mother Nature and, feelings that would bring them to the Paramahansa stage of, pure devotional service. And Narada is saying, then what are you doing an austerity to go home and have 100,000 kids? That may seem like a far out exaggeration, but this is in the beginning of the universe, this is described, where service to Krishna was to propagate a lot of children and population to populate the universe. That's how it happened.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Charya Nisha.
Just had a question.
Rameshwar.
Sometimes we meet people on Sankirtan and everyone is at a different level of awakening consciousness. So I just wanted to ask you how you would respond when you're meeting people and they say, well, how do you know that all this exists? Everything you're hearing about, everything you're...
How do you know your great-grandfather exists if you haven't seen him? How do you know what this is? How do you know what the word means that describes this? How do you know anything? Everyone learns everything by hearing from someone else. Period. When you come out of your baby's womb, you don't know nothing. And even if you do, you have to figure out how to work the machine to just access it. So, how did you learn to talk? How did you learn to think? Have you ever thought about it? That fits right in with that verse of the Gita. Cultivate knowledge, and then meditate, contemplate on it. How did you do that? All you did was just crawl around and listen to people talk. In the very beginning, it's mystical. Sound has a mystic property. So that's the answer. We learned it just the same way that you learn things. You just haven't heard this yet. Welcome aboard. And if they can't, resonate with that at all, move on. Don't waste your time. Don't think you're going to give them a Bhagavatam class and change their mind. Hare Krishna. Yes, Parameshwar, please. I was going to say local saint, but you're not ever local because you're always moving from one place to another.
Definitely not a saint either.
What?
And definitely not a saint either. Thank you, Maharaj. So you mentioned earlier, quoting this devotee who says you can't really get this without the drop of the mercy of a pure devotee.
Yeah, it's a verse, it's bottom of prayer actually, in 10th Canto of Bhagavatam.
So, and Prabhupada, I believe, said the most important verse is full faith in Guru and Krishna.
He did say that. You know how that happened?
No, but I love to hear.
Yeah. In the old days, when not many devotees knew, or had books, what to speak of, knew them, one of the persons who started to read, to memorize verses and learn the Shastra was Guru Kripa. And he learned most of the Gita. And it got back to Prabhupada, and he was with Prabhupada sometimes in India. So one time he asked, Guru Kripa, he said, so what's the best verse? And Guru Kripa is like going, phew, and he went, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Vikevala, And then Prabhupada looked at him and said, no. And then he said, Yasyadevi Pura Bhaktir, Ita Tevitu. That's the most important verse. Because the knowledge is, it advents, it's there, but the import of the knowledge comes into the heart when one has full faith in Krishna and the full faith in the Guru. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, thank you very much. So it seems like, I mean, I've kind of raised a scientific mind, and it just seems like one can just apply that and see the result, which is like like you're hitting 3 cherries every time, you know, when you, as opposed to a lemon and a, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into gambling. I'm not into that, but yeah, nice analogy. So, and then you get an unlimited thing, and then as you go throughout your day, it seems like things aren't lining up. You can recheck that modus operandi of having I'm starting to, you know, veer a little bit from that principle, and then again the unlimited flow happens again. So what's been working for me, and I just want to ask you if there's more to it, or am I a little off with that, but just going to Guru and going, how may I serve you? And of course Krishna, it's hard, I mean, full faith in Krishna, why not? But it seems like a lot of people have the trouble with the full faith in Guru. But if we just apply that and we go to Guru, how may I serve you? And in other words, we do what he wants instead of what we want, and all that, seems like that seems to be the best way to get that drop of mercy, or an ocean of mercy in that sense.
It is.
Is there, am I wrong, or is there,
that's it isn't wrong.
Or is there more to it than that? And, or could you elaborate on it to make it better?
The scientific mind, the intelligence that's been trained in science, pragmatic science, reductionist science, they tend to want, when they think of experiment, they think, and doing what you just said, they think of needing a laboratory and physical objects and things that they can put in test tubes or bring into the laboratory and test it. And we have a geologist in our midst, you know, and I'm sure there's different ways that they can test the age of things and when it came and all these things. So the process is the same, but the laboratory is inside. That's the difference. So I liked the way you were explaining how you were, if you're not getting the result as it is described in the book, then you have to make adjustments, because it's a fact. It is a science, you know, but it's not a material science. It's a spiritual science. And in order to check, you know, you have to check others who have applied the science correctly. And if you do that, then you get that drop of mercy. But what it is Krishna in the heart of everyone. You know, and actually Krishna is the Guru. He's the Supreme Guru. And of course, then Balaram, he's not known as the Supreme Guru, but who's known as the Supreme Guru? Balaram. He's known as the Supreme Guru. Why? Because he's the first form. Well, first doesn't mean in time, it just means in relationship. Who thinks, I am a servant of Krishna. He's the original person that thinks, I am a servant of Krishna. And even Lord Chaitanya, in order to understand himself, has to take the form of a servant of himself in order to get it, in order to understand it. That's Radharani. So these are our two original gurus. And most of our gurus go back to one of those persons, ultimately. Or there's so many branches of those authorities, you know, between us and them, you know. But yes, you know, it's a science, but it's a subtle science. It's a spiritual science, the most subtle science. And, you know, it does require, if you're not getting it, if you're not getting the results that it says, then you have to make adjustments. And I tell you, the first adjustment is just exactly what you said. It's called humility, you know. And of course, we get ultimate humility by coming to the spiritual authority and submitting ourselves. But even before that, we get banged over the head by material nature in so many ways, in so many different lifestyles and bodies. in order to be humble and say, yeah, that didn't work. And if you do it enough times and it doesn't work, then you start to think subtly. You think, oh, maybe there's something more to it. Maybe there. I remember the moment I kind of changed my direction into the spiritual direction. I was on the top of a mountain somewhere in California, and we were being free as you can be, thinking we could be free as we can be, not really. And I remember looking out and thinking, God, there must be something more than this. Because so far in my whole life I had been successful at whatever I had done. And now I was doing something that was supposed to be the latest thing to be successful at, and that's just to be free. Not have an authority and law and rule or whatever. And then I just thought, God, there must be something more than this. And then inside it just kind of like, that's right. You're looking in the wrong place. And not that long after that, I met Prabhupada. I got 2 books from separate places, and they were from the same author, and I'd been praying and trying, couldn't get it myself, couldn't get it from the book. But when I got those 2 books from Prabhupada's servants, who were doing what Prabhupada asked them to do, who I still consider this today my Pradharshika gurus, then I got it. And then I just read a few things and then answered the questions, the basic questions I had that hadn't been answered by all these other books I had. That was it. I shut the book and said, okay, that's it. Went to San Francisco to ask questions, and Prabhupada had arrived on the same day. Hare Krishna. That was it. End of material existence. So therefore it was more than just a book. I'm going to, it's almost 6 o'clock, and I'm going to, we have a program at the temple. We have it early on Sunday so the devotees can go to the program in the temple. But I'd like to thank you very much for your presence and for that very nice realization, and also the question about it. It went deeper than it normally does as a result of that same principle you're talking about. It's actually a fact. Come and see us more often.
Thank you for letting me participate with the highest benediction one can have in hearing and chanting in the association of love.
There it is. Thank you so much. Haribol. Gaur Premanandi Hari Haribol. Now, do we have any questions from cyberspace? Sometimes I get carried away and then I forget to ask them.
Yes.
They write me back and say, why didn't you ask? And so I shouldn't do that. Is there questions?
Yes.
Thanks, Parameshwar. Very nice. Very nice. That's what happens when you go and distribute books for a long time. Sincerely. You get that kind of intelligence.
Someone asked if they could ask a question. I don't think they ever did. But then Rati asked a question. So, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Yesterday I had one question which I did not get answered. I was hoping that you might answer it now. Yesterday in the text we heard about the topic of worshipping the Lord. This is of course a basic theme in Krishna consciousness. Yet sometimes I wonder, what does worship exactly mean in a broader sense? Would you please elaborate on this?
Yes. Actually, the word bhajan, bhakti, they come from the same root, and they only actually apply to Krishna. Worship only applies to Krishna. It doesn't apply to anyone else. Because anyone else that you worship, it ends up being just flattery to get something else from that person. So worship means to adore, but with full love, without any other motivation. And because Krishna is the only person that has what everybody's looking for. Therefore, he's the only person that is qualified to be worshipped. So it means, ultimately at the end, it means to please Krishna's senses. To please another person means to please their senses. But unfortunately, we're full with a whole bunch of bodies that have senses that are just limited, unqualified to give back what we're looking for, and whose senses are not satisfiable. Nobody's senses are satisfiable in this world by, rubbing up against other senses. So worship is only, first of all, applies to Krishna, and you can't worship the air. You can appreciate it, you need it. You can be completely dependent on it, but you can't worship it in the same way that worship means. Worship means you please the senses, to please the person. And because Krishna is a person whose senses and himself, there's no difference. Therefore, actual worship means to please the mind and senses of Krishna. And when you do that, then because he's also sitting in your heart, inconceivably, he goes, oh, thanks. And then he gives you everything you need. He gives you intelligence how to come back to him. So I liked Parameshwar's way he was talking. I really liked it. He was talking about going this direction, doing it this way. Hey, that doesn't even exactly what. Then you adjust. This is what you adjust. And adjust and adjust. And therefore the cultivation of knowledge means to find out more about Krishna. What he likes, what he doesn't like. Who he's with. Who's connected. That touches his point also. Yasya Devi Para Bhakti Yatate Vitha Guru. Guru is one who actually knows Krishna in the sense that he knows what he likes and doesn't like. And you can find out about a very exalted person by knowing a person who's close to that person. Therefore, you worship, the Guru is worshipable also if he's actually a Guru, because he can explain to you what Krishna likes and what Krishna doesn't like and how to please him. It goes right to Parameshwar's verse, which was Prabhupada's favorite verse, most important verse. Hare Krishna. I got a thumb up?
Yeah, I was going to
Oh, I thought. Oh, you gave me a thumb up.
Yeah.
A heart. I got a heart. That's better than a thumbs up. We're doing okay. Thanks, Radhi. That was a great question. Great question. That followed by Parameshwar's question. I mean, after that was really two good questions. That took it somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to go let everybody get to the program, and I got things to do also. Hare Krishna. The Lord's Bishu's instructions to Daksha ki jai. Samabeta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Glories to the devotees, because you can't hear unless you're in the association of devotees. Gaur Premanandi Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow, 6:30 Central Time, USA. Same place, same station. Hare Krishna.